It's time for some answers. How do you know all this? Where did you learn all this? The appropriate interrogative for your question is not where, but when. The answer is almost 30 years of experience. When I began programming, I was 14 years old, and I didn't have my own computer. I lived with my parents, and they did not have a computer either. They bought one like 10 years later, when I was already living on my own. I bought my first computer when I was like 17 years old, using money I earned from my first job. It was a Toshiba Leo Designate laptop, and it was really expensive even by today's standards. Before that, for 3 years or so, I did all my programming somewhere else. Besides the computer classes at school, mostly it was on my friends' computers. I am still thankful to many of my friends back then. Topi Rinkinen, Jorma Jääskeläinen, Jouni Karppinen, Samsa and Martti Kosti and a couple of others, and their parents for their incredible patience as I spent all my days in their houses or apartments coding on their computers. Not playing games, but coding. First in QBasic, then QuickBasic, and then in Borland Pascal. At some of them I spent time watching them play games. I also borrowed some books from the local library. In terms of computer science, their selection was very outdated, and of course it was all in Finnish language. Most of those books were written by Finnish people, and they were only available in Finland. Internet was not a thing back then. The primary way of computer networking back then was a bulletin board system, or BBSs. Most of these were systems maintained by a single person, where only a single person could connect at a single time using a modem link and access a text-based system to do things such as play text-based games like The Legend of the Red Dragon, read forums, download files, and chat with a sysop, the person who maintains that particular BBS. This was how social networking worked back in 1990s. Back then, very few people, aside from businessmen, had mobile phones, although they became more mainstream towards the end of the decade. From the BBSs, I downloaded documents such as Ralph Brown's Interrupt List, or the PCPGE, the PC Games Programmer's Encyclopedia. These were documents that taught me a lot about how operating systems, well, DOS in particular, works, and how graphics programming works. Mainly some demo effects and the tweaked VGA mode. One of the most valued documents for me was the one that describes the I/O registers of the FM synthesizer in Adlib-compatible sound cards. Nearly all of these documents are still available online, but for the most part their content is totally obsolete by now because they document operating systems and hardware that nobody uses anymore. In general, the most important skill for a programmer is the ability to look up information. I have not gone to any courses, but I do learn lots of stuff every day. When I am particularly interested of some topic, I search for it and read what I can find. There are no secrets to this, and no special sites of information. I just search and read what I find. No, but how did you begin? Like I said, the world was a very different place only just 30 years ago. Back then there was no internet. There were no smartphones. Some people might have had Amiga computers, and even fewer had PC hardware. But I was not one of those people. I had nothing. In the 7th year of the comprehensive school, we had a new topic in our curriculum: information technology, which means computer use. Before this class, I had never in my life touched a computer or a computer keyboard. I knew absolutely nothing about computers. This class consisted of a few topics such as learning to use the keyboard, learning to use a text processing program, learning to use the DOS command prompt such as creating and entering directories, and programming. The teaching tool for programming back then was GWBasic. We had the book, and I would put a picture of the book somewhere here if I could, so that you wouldn't need to look at just my face, but I don't have a picture. This book taught the language, variables, if statements, input and prints, for loops and while loops. I didn't quite understand it all, but I really wanted to experiment. For example, I didn't understand that while and wind were related, and I looked up wind in a dictionary and saw that it directs the course somehow. So I wrote lots of wind in my code and wondered why doesn't it work. Many misunderstandings were made. Did I mention I didn't have a computer? I wrote source code on the paper. First 2 years I did much of my programming on pen and paper. Really makes you value the real estate. To write dense code that takes as little screen space as possible. Anyway, I would write and plan my programs on a pen and paper, and later in schools or at my friends' places I would type it out and spend time testing, debugging and improving it. That's kind of how I began. I am a beginner programmer, or I want to begin programming. Which books would you recommend to me? To be honest, I have absolutely no idea. As I explained earlier, it was almost 30 years ago when I was a beginner, and the world was a different place back then. Any books that I read back then were already largely obsolete back then, or taught things that are definitely obsolete by now. Oh, and they were all in Finnish language. The only physical book related to programming that I have read in the last 15 years or so was Advanced Compiler Design and Implementation, a book that focuses on compiler design, and it is definitely not a beginner's book. Oh, and I have also read Physically Based Rendering from Theory to Implementation. Right now I don't remember anything of that book though. Most of what I have learned have come from resources that are available on the computer. For example, the online manuals in Quick Basic and Perl and Pascal. In this context, online means that the text was part of the IDE, the development environment, and could be accessed from the text editor by pressing the F1 key or something. Or they are documents that are available in the internet, such as the CPP reference site that I mentioned earlier. For the last 20 years I have hardly needed material for a beginner, because I have not been a beginner for a long time. I would not know what to recommend to you. I am sorry. I may make a beginner-oriented programming tutorial series someday, but don't hold your breath. It might be a year from now, or it could be 5 years from now, or it could be never. If today is the day that you are interested in programming, look up information today. Maybe Khan Academy or Udemy or something, or just search for the relevant words and see what you find. Again, I wouldn't know. Sorry.